Live. Who's got stress out there? Raise your hand if you're stressed. If you're stressed, I want to give you a simple framework to help solve your stress fast. This is the exact framework that I use for myself when I'm stressed. It's the same framework I use for my clients when they are stressed. And when you're the subject of being stressed, it can feel like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, right? Because we go into fight or flight and we don't think very clearly. Whereas if we can just follow a simple framework, you can adopt it and get out of stress faster, or identify that this is out of my control. And then we'll talk about that in a second, what to do in that point, right? Because at the end of the day, we can only control things that we can control. And the only thing we're stressing about are things in our control. If we can't control it, you got to give up the stress, got to break free, which we'll talk about. So if this is helpful to you or beneficial, feel free to like this, comment. I like to have conversation as we go. I'll be following along, comments on my phone as we go. This is also day 1 of the 7-day New Year Self-Care Comeback Challenge. If there's hype for that, let me know in the comments. But if you are stressed, there's 3 ways to deal with it. The first one is you rip it out at the source. We make it so it never happens in the first place. Now, this is usually the step-by-step as well. So I start at the source. Now, can you always rip something out of the source? The answer is no. For example, let's say that you have a significant other, as many of us do, and let's say that person stresses you out. Let's say there's a stressful opportunity, a stressful moment. There was one, Kim, I hope you don't mind me sharing this. I was just reading through some of the comments as we start today, and Kim had said that her, husband had like a quick comeback or a quick something that stressed her out or got under her skin, or it kind of demotivated her, right? Now, can she rip it out at the source? Can she get rid of her husband? I mean, yes, but is that likely? No. So we're not going to do that one. We're not going to rip it out at the source. You rip it out at the source when it's something that's small in your control. For example, let's say that you have a big stress around being late to work. Like, for example, you wake up late and then you're going, your cortisol is super high, which actually makes it harder to burn fat. But your stress is like cranked up to a 10. You wake up, your heart's racing, and you run to work. You finally get there and you're stressed, and that stress actually stays with you a lot of the day. Well, you can rip that out at the source really easily. Set your alarm 15 minutes earlier. But you might say, oh, but I'm so exhausted. Well, let's put the rituals in place going to bed. 60 to 90 minutes before bed, we set the alarm. Oh, I can't do that. Why? And then we start digging into that if that's the case, right? So if you can rip it out of the source, you want to. Now, we'll use Kim's husband as an example, right? So we're not going to rip that out of the source. So what do? Well, we're going to change the way we view it. Maybe. Now, this could be applied in Kim's case, where let's say somebody says something to us and the way we interpret it is negative. It's, this person's out to get me. This person is trying to attack me. This person is, and they very well may be, right? But we can have someone say something to us and interpret it 2 completely different ways, changing the way it makes us feel, i.e. changing the stress it gives us. So for example, let's say that, I'll use my wife for example. Let's say that I'm working, I get out of work, and my wife says to me, it's about time, meaning I come into the room and now I'm hanging out with my son, which she's great. She doesn't do this, right? I'm just giving you an example. But like, let's say I go and start hanging out with my son. It's 4:00 and I've been working all day. And she says, about time, right? Now, of course, the initial response is, whoa, hold on a sec. Like, what's going on? Now, it's very natural for anybody to have a response to that. Like, well, I've been working, right? I'm not just hanging around, not just on my phone scrolling, right? And that's usually what happens. But here's the thing. Here's something that will change your life. So I hope you're paying attention when it comes to stress and working with other people and having relationships, which I'm sure you have them. When somebody does something to us or says something to us and the tonality they use, there's only 2 types of communication. That's it. There's loving responses and cries for help. That's it. So in this situation, if my wife were to do that, be like, it's about time, is that a loving response or a cry for help? Well, we know it's not a loving response, so by default, it's a cry for help. What's the cry for help? I'm tired. I'm stressed. I'm exhausted. I have been, with him all day and he's been just like, insane, which our son's really great. But, as an example, right? So in that moment, I have an opportunity. I can identify it as a cry for help and dig deeper and try to help her. But what human beings generally do, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, I don't do this every time, but I do take a moment, hopefully, to stop. What people usually do is I'm feeling pretty good. I go to the person, I go to my wife, she says, maybe something like, it's about time. And then I take that cry for help and I cry for help back. Well, hey, I've been working all day. I'm exhausted too. And then she cries back. And then we just go back and forth and cry for help all day until we're both, no one feels better and we're all exhausted. And essentially, what was a stressful situation became even more stressful because we both cried at each other back and forth. Now, how do you stop that completely? We stop that simply by looking at it as a cry for help. Now, granted, if you can't approach that in that moment favorably in the way you want, walk away. Hey, I'll be right back. Walk away, get into a good place, and then go back. Because I can promise you the best way to ruin a relationship is just having everyone cry for help back and forth all day, right? But we've never been taught these things a lot of times. And I'm not saying that you do it all the time, but one thing that can really help is just by identifying it and taking that step. So hopefully that makes sense. You can change the way you view it. Now, this can also be done in a work basis, right? So a lot of us deal with administration. Some of us are administration. But some of us deal with the administration of the hospital, or maybe you're not an RN, but you're a healthcare worker, you know what I'm talking about. Or maybe you're a school teacher, right? We have school teachers in here and you have administration above you, right? And, sometimes you have your boss that comes over and says something snarky or aggressive. I'll give you an example. I had one of my clients in the past where they put a mandatory all hands on meeting during when she was supposed to take care of patients, and those patients weren't going to have any care. And when she approached the administration and said, hey, these patients aren't going to have care during this time, they said, well, if you're not at the meeting, you're fired. In an aggressive tone. Now, obviously, she can look at that and say, well, that person, they don't care about the patients, right? And this person doesn't care about me and I hate them, and right, and that causes stress. Or we can take a step back, which is hard to do. I'm not saying it's easy, but we can take a step back and start to realize, wait a second, they're human. Happy people don't make other people feel bad. They don't. So that's a cry for help. It's not a loving response. What is that person going through? We don't know. For all we know, that woman is in a divorce, a legal battle divorce with her husband of 22 years because he cheated on her. And now her whole life is falling apart and she has no control. And her job is falling apart because nobody's on the same page, and right, she's the administration, it falls on her. So what does she try to do? She tries to get control. How does she get control? She does it by force. And she's telling people, my way or the highway. But again, does that have anything to do with you? Does that have anything to do with that past client of mine? No, it doesn't. It has everything to do with them. So if we can identify, if we can realize, if we can know that people are human, just like us, and things are usually not directed towards us, but yet something that's going on in their own life. If you guys think, is this beneficial? Is this relevant? Feel free to let me know in the comments so I'm not crazy. I do see a comment there. Good to see you this morning. Definitely hyped. I love it. That's good. So let's just say we're not going to change the source. It's impossible for the situation. We're not going to change the way we view it. We can change the way we cope with the stress. So what I mean by that is, okay, let's use the example. Let's say something absolutely terrible happens, which I don't care how terrible something is, you can always change the way we view it. Always, no matter what. And I'm not here to say there's always a silver lining, but what I do believe, a belief that empowers me, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to empower you, not disempower you, right? And a belief that will empower you is life is always happening for you, not to you. If you are not getting what you want, or something is not going well, or something bad happens, ask the question, how could this be life's way of helping me? What can I learn from this? And I'm not saying I always do that too. It's hard to do that, especially when you're like, going through hell. But what I am here to say, I'll make your life way better, especially if we do it. So change the way we view it. But then if you can't, change the way we stress. So what's the stress? Well, let's say that you are changing the way we view it, but that's a work in progress. And the way you stress right now just so happens to be food, or maybe it's another destructive habit like smoking or gambling or, whatever. If that's the case, can we change the way we cope with the stress to make it less destructive? And the answer is yes. Now, what a lot of people try to do when they try to change the way they cope with stress, they interchange something. So they change one thing for another. They get rid of the destructive habit immediately and replace it with something else. Or even worse, they just get rid of the habit, but they don't fulfill the need. They don't fill the hole that it was giving, right? Every action we do is to achieve our human needs: certainty, uncertainty, significance, love and connection, growth, and contribution. If our needs aren't being fulfilled by an action we've gotten rid of, we'll just go back to that. So an example is like quitting smoking. The reason that quitting smoking cold turkey doesn't work for a lot of people is because they get rid of it and they don't replace it with anything, or the thing they replace it with just isn't that good. So my recommendation, after helping people get off cigarettes, stop drinking, and I'm not saying I'm a psychotherapist or hypnotist or any of that stuff. I have helped people stop smoking after 20 years, stop drinking after 20 years being addicted. And I've helped create more positive addictions for people. Not every single person. Not saying I'm like, but I have helped, right? And it's patterns. You get pattern recognition. You find after working with so many people, you can start to figure out. I have to be an idiot not to realize that like there are patterns to this stuff. So that's why I like to think through frameworks like this, because it's really beneficial. So with that in mind, change the stress. Let's say food is the way that you cope emotionally. Don't get rid of those foods. Simply reduce the thing and increase it in another area. For example, let's say that, speaking to a friend, let's just say that's your other thing that helps you get connection and certainty. Okay, cool. Food also gives you those things. You have a little bit of the food. That's fine. Don't get rid of it. You can't, if your brain realizes you're getting rid of something, right, which it will, there's going to be pain attached to it and you're probably going to go back. But if you still, okay, I'm going to have some of that food, but I'm also going to talk to my friend, right, after or during or whatever, or maybe after, so you don't connect the two actions. And then you just keep reducing, and you won't feel the hit emotionally from reducing that food if you are achieving your human needs in another action, being the friend. That's just an example. Now, a lot of these things is what we brainstorm with our one-on-one clients, right? Because it's really hard to be in a group atmosphere and to be able to troubleshoot this. But hey, look, if anyone's got stress in the comments before we finish this out, I don't want these to go too long. If anyone has stress in the comments, a stressor that they don't know how to work through, comment now. And if you're watching this on replay, comment now, because I'll come back and I'll answer you in the comments. Before we finish out, I'll give you like 10 seconds. Maybe you want to write something, maybe you don't. But hopefully this is beneficial. Just remember, right? If there's anything you can take away from this, it is a new belief. Our beliefs are what shape our life. Life is always happening for you, not to you. If a stressor is happening, it's not meant to give your life hell. It's meant to be a signal. Everything we experience in life is a signal. And signals are meant to give us information. What is this information that this signal is trying to give you? Right? Every pain doesn't necessarily need to be coped, or maybe it does need to be coped with, but it's not to just be looked at as, oh, that's pain, I need to cope. It's, hey, this is a signal. What can I do to change my life? What can I do to change this thing? What is life trying to tell me? And life has a really funny way of, if you ignore the signal, it just keeps giving you the same signal. It's like, if you don't learn the lesson, life will keep giving you the lesson, right? So we have to learn the lesson. We have to get that signal. Hopefully this is beneficial. Hope you have a great day. If you need anything, let me know. I'm in the group, I'm around. And if you're ready to transform your body too, as always, I'll leave a link above or below this video, maybe both, on where you can apply to work with us for your one-on-one coaching journey. All right. I heard, our reaction to stress is because we are scared. Fear. Ooh, that's a great one. What's the question around that? So yeah, stress around fear is, a very real thing. I think that if you're thinking about fear, fear is so locked in to how we've evolved, right? You think about where fear lies. If you're fearful, it's really hard to think your way out of fear. That's why I believe if you're ever feeling fearful, You have to change your biochemistry. How do you do that? You don't think, well, I mean, you could, it's just really hard because you have to you have to really get into a good state. But the easiest way, if you're feeling stressed or you're feeling fear or you're feeling a negative emotion, the best way to change your state to be able to change the way you view it is to move your body. This sounds super funny and it might sound super weird too. If you're feeling stress in your body and you can't get rid of it, move. Do jumping jacks for 5 minutes. You might say, I can't do jumping jacks for 5 minutes. I'll die. Okay, do jumping jacks for 30 seconds, then rest for another 30, then do it for another 30, right? There's always a way. I can't do jumping jacks. My ankle hurts. Do whatever you can do. Anything to get your heart rate up. Because when you do that, you start to regain control of your body. And when you regain control of your body, now you have regained control of your mind and you can start to make positive change from the driver's seat. But a lot of times what happens is when we're in fear, that's not you. When you're in fear, when you're angry, it's not you in the driver's seat. You're like the top level of your brain, your neocortex, your rationale. And what happens is we become our emotional self. And our emotional self does not act in our best interest. Or it does, but it doesn't act in necessarily our long-term best interest. It acts in our immediate self-interest. So, good stuff. Hopefully that makes sense. I'll leave those links. You can check them out. And I'll see you guys soon. If you need anything, let me know. Love you guys very much. Take care. Bye.